Hey YouTube, how's it going? This is David Rivera Jr. I'm here to make you another video about your health. I just happened to be walking through the park. I decided to walk in the park today and try to find a nice spot to sit down and give you some information and information about your health, about vitamins D and the sun and why you should do it as often as you can, if not every day. Normally I do this in my backyard because it's just easier. But today, because I'm doing this video, I decided I'm just gonna wing it and try to find a spot in the park where I can set the camera down and give you some statistics and some real answers about why you should take in more sun when big companies, big pharma, and medical industry is telling you to stay away from it. Okay, I in particular need the sun more than most because I found out a long time ago I was vitamin D deficient, and I didn't know how important it was. So after I took care of the problem, I never thought about it again, and I let myself become deficient again. And as some of you may remember that I said in my last video, I had symptoms that resembled ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. And when I found out that I didn't have it, what I did was I went searching for what other disease I might have that had symptoms that were comparable to ALS. And what I found was that vitamin D was one of them. And although I found out that I was not vitamin D deficient at that time, it made me really aware of, within the research that I did, it made me really aware of how important it was to everybody. And from that point forward, I made sure that I not just took a vitamin D supplement, but that I went out into the sun every day to get some sun so that my body can make the vitamin D that it needs desperately. And I'm going to give you some reasons why you should do it too. And I have to find a place to set my camera down so I can talk to you because I have to, in order for me to do sunbathing, and I'm saying sunbathing because I do not mean tanning. I do not advocate tanning at all. Overexposure to the sun will cause you squamous cell degeneration, which is basically cancer. So let me find a spot and I'm going to talk to you about it some more. And it's real important information, so stick around. Hey, I found a place to put the camera down so I can do this video real quick and give you the information that I think you all are going to appreciate. When I was a kid, he used to tell us, drink your milk or you'll get rickets. And as some of you may know, they put vitamin D in milk in the 1930s just for that reason, because so many children had rickets. And what happened was that there are these two physicians, West and Unger, and what they did in 1921 is they put some kids on a roof in a New York City hospital that had rickets, and when it was sunny, and they proved that the sun would cure the rickets. And what it really is that when vitamin D hits your skin, when the sun hits your skin, it makes vitamin D. And they proved that over and over again with these children. So the government, what they wound up doing is they set up an agency, a government agency actually, that did all this promotion to make sure that families got their kids out into the sun. And eventually what they did is they put the vitamin D in the milk, and basically we've eradicated rickets in the United States. I mean, there's some kids that still get it, maybe some kids that are malnourished when they're younger, and it happens. But what people don't know, or mostly they don't know, is that the adult form of rickets is osteomalacia and osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis basically means that you have holes in your bones, that your bones are porous. And even though it's a silent killer, meaning that you don't feel it and there's no pain involved in it, if you break your bones, they'll be so much harder to fix, and your bones are really brittle. And that happens as you grow older. Now, when I say older, that's up to you, because older to some people is 40 and then to other people is 70. And osteomalacia is basically fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. And some of you may have family that have these diseases, and you know that these diseases are very painful throughout your joints and your bones all over your body. Now, there's a simple way to relieve these symptoms, and that is basically to get into the sun on a daily basis or take a vitamin D supplement. I happen to do both because, like I said, I found out years ago that I was vitamin D deficient, and every couple of years that I go to the doctor, I should say a while back, it's been happening for like 10 or 15 years. Every time I've gone to the doctor, they told me I was vitamin D deficient, and they would give me pills to make the deficiency go away, and then I would forget about it because I didn't feel any need for it. Now, like I said, I got sick, and I found out that vitamin D, almost like vitamin B12, has the same symptoms if you don't take care of it, if you become very, very deficient. So let me give you some more of this information. So especially, now this video is not especially for people of color, black people or people of color. It's information for everyone, but it's especially important for people of color because of the pigment of our skin is harder for the sun to penetrate and to make vitamin D. So let's say, for instance, a Caucasian, a white person, they would get, if they stay in the sun for, today is 90 degrees outside, they stay outside for maybe 5 to 20 minutes, their skin will turn a little pink, and that's enough sun. That's going to give you about 20,000 IU of vitamin D, which probably will last you a whole week. The problem for people of color and African Americans is that we need, I should say, someone of my skin complexion would probably need 2 or 3 times that amount to make the same amount of vitamin D. And people even darker than me, much darker than me, are going to need 5 or even 10 times that amount of sunlight to make the same amount of vitamin D. Now, we have the pharmaceutical companies, and let's be honest, dermatologists are telling us that any contact with the sun is going to cause skin cancer. And that can, there's nothing farther from the truth. The truth is that overexposure, if you burn yourself, yes, it's going to happen. Now, in the times that we live, I'll say this. I live in a suburban area, and I'm used to, when I was a child anyway, when we went outside every day. So that might have cured a whole bunch of stuff. But now children are inside playing video games, and in my neighborhood in particular, I never see any child outside. And when you see them go to the swimming pool, because we have a communal swimming pool, their parents are slathering them with sunscreen. And when you have that sunscreen on, you cannot make any vitamin D. So what I would suggest to you parents, and even for yourselves, is that you allow yourself to bathe in the sun. If you're very dark skinned, maybe an hour, maybe even 2. And if you're, like I said, if you're Caucasian, maybe 10 to 20 minutes. And if you're somebody of my skin complexion, maybe somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes. Now, why the sunlight instead of taking a supplement? Now, like I said, I do both just to make sure. Because the sun, if you make vitamin D in your own body, it lasts 2 to 3 times longer than if you take a supplement. And the scientists really haven't figured out all of the benefits of having sun make your vitamin D instead of taking the supplement, but they know that there's much more that they don't know. The other thing that, well, let me give you a couple of things that you may not know about the sun, because some of you think that, oh, I'm taking sunlight all the time because I jog in the mornings when it starts getting sunny, or you jog at night, excuse me, not at night, but in the afternoons after you come home from work and you think you're getting enough sunlight there to make vitamin D. But what a lot of people don't know is that you can only make vitamin D between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Because of the angle that the sun's rays come in at those hours, those are the only times that you can make it. So during your lunch hour, if you're working, maybe you should go outside and get a little bit of that sun so that you can make the vitamin D. The other thing is that if you live in North America, I should say, if you live north of Georgia, you can only make vitamin D between the months of March and October. The other times during the year, meaning November through February, you cannot make any vitamin D. The sun doesn't allow for it. It's not, I don't know if it's not powerful enough or what angle is coming in, but scientists have already determined that you cannot make vitamin D during that time. So if you're in Florida or if you're in the deep south, then you're straight. You can make it all year round. But I grew up in New York City, and you know, a lot of you, well, I had a lot of friends that, they went down south for the summer. And it's funny because I used to think down south was an actual place, and when later in life I found out that they were going to Georgia, that they were going to Florida, that they were going to North Carolina and South Carolina. As kids, when we got out of school, they would go down south. But we always had a couple of kids that came up north from down south, and it's funny because I always found that they were always a little bit stronger than we were up in the north. And now, what I'm hypothesizing is that because they get sun all year round and they're making vitamin D all year round, that their bones are a lot denser than ours were up north. Now, like I said, between the months of November and February, we can't make any. So by the end of February, when we're up north, we're depleted. We're depleted by that time, even if we were getting it all summer long and we're storing it. By February, we're depleted of almost all of our vitamin D. And what scientists have figured out is that that's the reason why we have February as flu season, because your immune system deflates when you don't have vitamin D. And that's why we have a booming flu season around February. It's not a coincidence. They've proven scientifically that that's exactly why it happens. So in 1964, the year before I was born, they reduced the recommended dose of vitamin D from 4,500 to 2,000. And then in, I think it was 1975, the recommended dose was reduced from 2,000 to 1,000. And then in 1992, the recommended dose was reduced from 1,000 to 400. Now we're at 2018, and they figured out that 400 is much too low, but they haven't changed the recommended dosage amount, but I should say the FDA hasn't, but scientists have figured out that you need somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 IUs of vitamin D every day for you to be sound mind and body, because loss of vitamin D will also cause dementia. It's going to cause heart failure and a lot of heart disease. What else can I say about vitamin D? Well, okay. Some women think that if they're eating a good diet, that their child, because you eat well, you take your vitamins, that you'll give, if you're breastfeeding your kid or your child or your baby, he's gonna get the vitamin D from you. And you would be wrong in thinking that, because if you want, 2,000 IU of vitamin D would be good if you wanted to make yourself healthy, but if you're breastfeeding, you would need 4,000 IU of vitamin D every day in order for it to be expelled from your breast, and so that you can give it to your baby. And here's a statistic that I found ridiculous. If you're vitamin D deficient, you're 50% more likely to have a heart attack than if you weren't vitamin D deficient. And if you have that heart attack while you're vitamin D deficient, it's 108% chance that you're going to die. Not 100%, 108% chance that you're going to die. Here's a crazy statistic. If you're vitamin D deficient, you're 50% more likely to have a heart attack than someone who is not vitamin D deficient. And if you do have that heart attack and you're vitamin D deficient, it's not 100% likely, but 108% likely that you will die from that heart attack. Now, I can't stress how important it is, this vitamin D is to the elderly, for them to get sun and for them to take the supplement. A vitamin D deficiency causes a cognitive decline in elderly people. It causes schizophrenia, it causes dementia, and it also causes depression. It's not, when I say it's a silent killer, I really mean it's a silent killer, because just like vitamin B12, like I talked about earlier, people are given many medications to get rid of or alleviate some of the symptoms that you get from vitamin D deficiency. So the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors are making a lot of money from vitamin D deficiency. Now, it's a very common thing now for doctors, as soon as you come in for your physical, to give you a test to make sure that you're not vitamin D deficient. That's a big thing going on right now. The problem is that people are not taking it as serious as it really is, because it takes so long for it to show up. Now, you see me, I have these tattoos, and they're really basically covering my arms. Someone like me, I have to actually, normally, I could get my vitamin D just by walking through the park and just getting an hour's worth of sun on my arms. But because I have these tattoos, the sun can't penetrate the way it's supposed to, and I will not make the vitamin D that I need to make. So I have to take my shirt off in order to make vitamin D. And at the end of the video, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take it off. I'm going to go for a quick walk, and for an hour or so. And I want to make sure that I get my vitamin D. I've already taken my supplement for the day, so this is what I have left. The other thing is that people are always concerned about becoming vitamin D toxic, but it takes so much to become vitamin D toxic that it's not likely that it'll ever happen to you, and it's impossible to become vitamin D toxic if the only form of vitamin D that you're getting is through the sun, because the sun will kill any extra vitamin D that the body doesn't need. Now, they've actually done some really cool studies with vitamin D, and they found out that children that were given 2,000 IUs of vitamin D a day for the first year of their lives reduced their risk of type 1 diabetes by 88%. And people that were given or are taking 800 IUs of vitamin D along with 1,200 IUs of calcium have reduced their risk of type 2 diabetes by 33%. Another study found that women who took the highest amounts of vitamin D reduced the risk of MS by, I believe it was 41%, And women who took the highest dose of vitamin D for rheumatoid arthritis reduced their risk of rheumatoid arthritis by 44%. Now, those are very, very high numbers in terms of statistics. You have to find out where you fit in those numbers. Now, an interesting thing is that there was a study that if you keep your level of vitamin D up to 38, that you reduce your risk of upper respiratory infections during the flu seasons you reduce it by 2 times. The interesting thing about that is that the Maasai of Africa live outside all year long, and their levels of vitamin D when they're tested are anywhere from 48 to 61. Now that's a lot, and their skin pigment is as dark as that camera that I'm looking at right now, and they have very few health issues and very little heart disease. Now it may have something to do with their diet also, but if you knew what their diet was, you wouldn't say that. Now before I go get my own sun, before I take my shirt off and go get my own sun and get my own vitamin D on, I want to give you some numbers. I want to give you the recommended doses for people of all ages. And I'm going to give you the doses, but I'm also going to give you what the scientists say for those same doses are actually safe uses. For anyone that's 0 to 1 year old, the recommended doses are 400 to 1,000 IUs a day. If you're 1 year old to 18 years old, the recommended dosage is 600 to 1,000 a day. And if you're 18 and over, the recommended doses are 1,500 to 2,000 a day. Now, if you're 1 year old, a safe dose is 2,000. If you're 1 to 18, a safe dose is 4,000. And if you're over 18, a safe dose, according to scientists, are up to 10,000 IUs. So the recommended dosage compared to what scientists say are safe are extreme. So you may want to go somewhere in between. Talk to your doctor about it. That's what I tell everyone in all my videos. Do your own research also. See that everything I'm telling you is not false. And although I tell people to consult their doctors all the time, I always tell people become your own physicians and do what's best for you. And I didn't talk anything about obese people, but that's pretty important because people that are obese actually need 2 to 3 times more vitamin D than normal people because they store the vitamin D in their fat. So if you're obese, you're going to need even more vitamin D. If your doctor only gives you 2,000 IUs, I'm not going to tell you not to listen to your doctor. I'm going to tell you, do your own research, consult with your doctor again, find another doctor, combine all their information, and then make a decision on your own. Okay? I think it's time for me to get my sun on, so to all my people out there, I want to say, have a good day, stay blessed, please try to stay healthy, and may the evil man be good, may the good man find peace, may he who finds peace be free, and may he who is free make others free. Have a good day, stay blessed.